supported this. So how do you see the challenge of scaling things for industry perspective?
So when we look at education as a whole, there's plenty of research out there that says the system of education is an industrial one that does not work in the current environment. So I've kind of written it up here just for you to kind of have a little bit visual. Knowledge is power. How many of you believe that? Let me see, how many of you believe that? Okay, now let me tell you the flaw in that thinking. Okay, there's three missing elements in power. If you know something, you've all thought of some new idea, right? Listening to all these wonderful speakers. Is it power yet? If you have knowledge, is it really power if you just know inside your mind? There's three key ingredients in all of education that's often missing. The first one is the C, which is courage. We heard the first speaker talk about courage. Having the courage to go do something different can sometimes get you killed, can sometimes get you ostracized by other people in the community, but that's what disruptive innovation is really all about. Second one is the W, was what I call wisdom. You have to know when and who to talk to. If you have a great idea, you have to go into that right social environment and know when it's time to do that. You know, just as he's talking right now, I'm like, oh, I want to talk to him about this, but I can't talk to him about that right now because we're in the middle of a panel. But there's a time and place to know when to talk to someone and who to talk to. That's the wisdom part. The third part, which is really important that education can really focus on, is the skill side. We always talk about education in so many different ways, and people are still taking tests. And I look at, I've not been in India, but I've been in education on many parts of the world. Lecture form of education is still present in so many places. And I see these wonderful speakers with great minds sitting here talking for a half hour. But then you ask yourself, how much do you really remember at the end of the day? If you don't remember it, what do? It's not going to be a skill. The key in education is to be able to put a system together so that you develop people's skills so that they can move forward. And you can look at very basic skills like listening skills. People talk about that all the time. Can you develop listening skills in an educational form? If you were to do that, you would go right back to Socrates and look at Socratic methods on how to ask the right questions. But there's no room in the classroom to do that if you have a professor talking down at the students. Even when you have nicely scaffolded rooms like you have at MIT, how much does the students get to learn how to ask the right questions so they can learn to listen on the other side? And then if we get to more complex ideas like creativity, how do we train creativity at the very young age all the way to every single one of you? Do you know when your most creative time is? Can you write down the creative ideas right now and then plan it out from A to Z and all the testing we've talked about in the entrepreneurship world? The skill side is the really critical part that's missing in many forms of education, which is something that can be embedded in a systematic way from all aspects. So when I say systematic way in education, it's not just about some professors doing something different. The curriculum design has to be different. The technology embedded in the university systems has to be different. It can't be just, let me use Blackboard as a learning system. Blackboard is an information push-out system. It is not a learning system, okay? The learning system has to have an accountability where people take new knowledge, find the courage, have the wisdom, and then go apply it through the application when they develop the skills. That's the key aspect of education. And then the rest of the system should be a feedback loop. The current education system in many parts of the world, the feedback loops, professor, student, that's it. What about the rest of the environment, the family, the workplace, your friends? There's so many ways to create a holistic system for education. And that's the things I'm focusing on.
So similar kind of any experience that when you were working with either US or India or China, where you see some kind of synergies or where they share the examples of learning?
Yeah, so I think one of the most interesting things that most universities tend to share is the whole case-based study, right? But right here in Cambridge, there's Sloan Management Review, Harvard Business Cases. Those are being shared all over the world. They're heavily used in China. I'm sure they're heavily used in India. But there's a couple of major challenges in doing case studies. For one, the real world will never give you a problem on a piece of paper. Your skills to ability to assess a real world problem has to come from you talking to people, you listening, you watching other people from your eyes, right? So that's one of the major challenges. And then the latter part of it, when you assess a case, come up with a solution, how do you know if it works? The professor gets to tell you if it works or not if you get an A in the paper. When I was doing my MBA, it was really fascinating because I was in a marketing class, and you had this little lady, who I won't say what her name was, and it was a marketing class on a cruise ship, right? So you had to figure out how to do marketing for a cruise ship. I came up with an idea that was way far out in left field, and I got a C. And I said, okay. And then she said, you didn't use my theories. Oh, can I rewrite the paper? Sure, go ahead. I rewrote the paper using her words from the lectures, using her theories, and got an A. That was her case study, analysis of the case study. And I said, how do you know if it works in the real world? That's where the light bulb kind of turned up in my mind. Why are we so focused on case studies when there are so many companies out there that can use the expertise of the professors, that can use the brilliance of the students and let the students go out, take their ideas, implement it in the real world, not just in here's some reports, but go help them implement it. So they develop the skills of implementation, and then it becomes real. Everything they do becomes much more realistic. So instead of talking about, well, you have so many thousands of graduates in India or in China put together, 40% some, we can start talking about how students are impacting the community and moving companies forward and helping entrepreneurs be more successful based on the students and professor engagement. That's the success. The number of graduates, those are just surface level numbers. Business schools or medical schools, so on, how many theories are Indian theories? How many theories are Chinese theories in those particular schools that are being taught, that are original? That's the first key, is to graduate a lot of PhDs or researchers to create your own theories of finance, your own theories of pharmacology or whatever systems you want to talk about. Creating your own theories. Once you can start doing that, then you'll be able to empower yourself based on the cultural relevance of those theories and move your nation forward. Okay? Well, let me get to the second part. The second part of your question was you don't have enough people teaching, right? Now, this falls back on a traditional model where you need the professor in front of the classroom to teach, right? And there's been some research done that looks at why are people self-taught and what successes do they have when they're self-taught. If you look at all the universities, the textbooks are relatively the same, right? You can all access the textbooks, you have everything on the web, you can download the case studies, you can self-teach these things. You don't need somebody in the front lecturing you at you. But the educational system is, you're kind of falling back on the traditional system. But there are new ways to do education where the professor plays a much smaller role in education. Instead of people teaching education, you have an entire system. It involves your family, it involves the technology that helps you learn different skills and different knowledge. It's not just the teacher has to give you everything. So that's a flawed system. To develop creativity, right? When we look at any of the US institutions here, how many classes do they have on creativity? Sometimes they may cover a little bit on one or two, but creativity takes a long time to develop. It has to be in the entire curriculum to develop little by little. You did it over 4 years. And I can challenge some of you, if you were to do it, how long would it take you? To develop creativity at the very basis level, so when the masses of people that graduate are all creative people. This is where innovation comes from. This is what we have to develop in India and China to surpass any other country. Its creativity is at the basis, but education is the foundation of where it starts. And it cannot be done by a typical lecture format. It has to be done through a bigger system creativity side so that the system can move people forward. It's not just professors, not just technology, it's everybody working together, including the government.